Imagine a city perched on volcanic rock, where 10-story tenements cast shadows over medieval streets. Edinburgh, 1700. 50,000 souls crowded into narrow wynds and closes. A place where the poorest and wealthiest shared the same dark stairwells, yet from this unlikely setting emerged an age of enlightenment. Through cutting-edge AI reconstruction, we bring to life Edinburgh during the Scottish Enlightenment. A time when this northern city would earn its title, the Athens of the North, when philosophy, economics, and science would flourish in conditions that seemed designed to crush the human spirit. The old town rises like a stone fortress from Castle Rock. Buildings climb 10, even 12 stories high, the tallest structures in Britain outside London. Families live stacked vertically, wealthy merchants on lower floors, laborers in attic rooms, all sharing a single spiral staircase called a turnpike stair. Morning in the old town, the air thick with smoke from thousands of coal fires. The cry of Gardyloo echoes as chamber pots empty from high windows. Waste splashes onto cobblestones below. By custom, pedestrians shout back floras to warn those above. Medieval sanitation in an age of reason. The wynds and closes branch off the Royal Mile like ribs from a spine. Narrow passageways barely 6 feet wide, forever in shadow. Names like Advocates' Close, Flesh Market Close, Mary King's Close. Each a vertical neighborhood where hundreds live in perpetual twilight between stone walls. Edinburgh Castle dominates the skyline, perched 300 feet above sea level on the plug of an extinct volcano. Ancient fortress walls enclose barracks, armories, and the crown room where Scotland's crown jewels rest. From its ramparts, soldiers survey the entire old town spread below like a medieval tapestry. The castle has stood for centuries, witness to sieges, executions, and coronations. Within its walls, the Scottish Parliament met before the Union of 1707. Now it serves as military garrison and symbol of Scotland's enduring identity, even as political power shifts to London. The Royal Mile stretches from Castle to Holyrood Palace. 1 mile of steep cobblestones, the spine of Edinburgh. At its western end, the castle. At its eastern terminus, the Palace of Holyrood House. Between them, the compressed world of Old Town Edinburgh, where Scotland's fate is debated daily. Along the Royal Mile, land rents at premium prices. Every inch occupied. Shops on ground floors sell everything from French wines to Edinburgh-made stockings. Above, the flats of advocates, physicians, and merchants. Higher still, the homes of clerks, servants, and artisans, a vertical society. St. Giles Cathedral rises midway down the high street, its crowned spire a landmark visible throughout the city. Inside, Presbyterian services echo where once Catholic masses rang. The reformer John Knox preached here 2 centuries ago. Now it stands as heart of Scottish Presbyterianism. The Luckin booths cluster against St. Giles's northern wall. Locked booths where merchants sell books, jewelry, and fine goods. 6 stories of timber and stone jutting into the high street, so cramped that sedan chairs can barely pass. Allan Ramsay's bookshop here becomes Edinburgh's literary centre. Parliament Square beside St. Giles. Though Parliament dissolved in 1707, the square remains Edinburgh's legal heart. Here, barristers in powdered wigs hurry to the Court of Session. The law, at least, remains Scottish. The accent of justice still speaks with a Highland burr. Evening descends on the old town. Taverns illuminate the closes with candlelight. These are not merely drinking establishments. They are Edinburgh's intellectual battlegrounds. In smoky rooms smelling of ale and tobacco, the Scottish Enlightenment takes shape over claret and conversation. Johnny Dowie's Tavern on Liberton's Wynd. Dark wooden booths, low ceilings blackened by smoke. Here, philosophers debate human nature while medical students discuss anatomy over oysters. No class distinctions enforced. A tradesman might argue theology with an earl. Ideas matter more than lineage. The taverns operate on egalitarian principles foreign to London society. A man is judged by his wit and learning, not his birth. This democratic spirit of Edinburgh's drinking establishments nurtures radical thinking. Here, in ale-soaked debate, Old certainties crumble and new philosophies emerge. The poker club meets every Friday. Founded to promote Scottish interests after the Union, members include Adam Smith, David Hume, Adam Ferguson. They discuss everything from economics to agriculture. The name? A poker stirs a sluggish fire as they aim to stir Scotland from post-Union lethargy. The University of Edinburgh stands near the Cowgate. Founded 1583, by 1730, it rivals any European institution. Unlike Oxford and Cambridge with their religious tests, Edinburgh accepts students of any faith. Practical education over theological indoctrination. Science over dogma. The university's old college buildings cluster around courtyards, lecture halls packed with students from Scotland, England, America, and the continent, some as young as 14. They come for Edinburgh's reputation in medicine, natural philosophy, and moral philosophy. Education that transforms peasants into philosophers. The medical school achieves legendary status. Here, medicine is learned not from ancient texts, but from observation and dissection. Bodies procured through questionable means provide material for anatomy lessons. Students crowd around cadavers, learning the truth of human structure firsthand. Empiricism over authority. Professor Alexander Monroe's Anatomy Theatre, 1720. Tiered benches surrounding a central table. 300 students watch as Monroe dissects a human body. His lectures are so popular that tickets sell on the black market. Edinburgh becomes Europe's premier destination for medical training. The Royal Infirmary opens 1741, a 6-story building near the university. Here, medical students observe actual patients. Clinical instruction revolutionizes medical education. Physicians learn at the bedside, not merely in lecture halls. Edinburgh's approach will transform medicine across Europe and America. David Hume walks the High Street. Born 1711 in Edinburgh. Portly, ruddy-faced, dressed in simple brown coat. He appears an unremarkable figure. Yet his mind questions the foundations of human knowledge. His treatise of human nature challenges everything philosophy held certain. Hume's questions are radical. Can we truly know cause and effect? Is the self an illusion? Does reason govern human nature or merely passion? His ideas scandalize the pious, yet his gentle manner and humor make him beloved in Edinburgh society. Philosophy incarnate, debating in taverns. Despite religious controversy, Hume becomes librarian of the Advocates' Library. Surrounded by thousands of volumes, he writes his History of England. Rejected for professorships due to supposed atheism, he influences students informally. In cafes and drawing rooms, he demolishes philosophical certainties with devastating logic. Adam Smith arrives in Edinburgh 1748, 25 years old, recently returned from Oxford. He delivers public lectures on rhetoric and moral philosophy. His ideas on human sympathy and moral judgment attract attention. Edinburgh's intellectual circles recognize a brilliant mind emerging. Smith becomes professor of moral philosophy at Glasgow, but Edinburgh remains his intellectual home. He frequents the same taverns as Hume. They become close friends despite philosophical differences. In 1759, Smith publishes The Theory of Moral Sentiments, exploring human sympathy and ethics. But Smith's greatest work comes later. 1776. An inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. Written partly in Edinburgh, it explains how markets function through self-interest. The invisible hand guides economic activity. Smith creates modern economics, transforming how we understand commerce. The Oyster Club meets in a Canongate cellar every Monday evening. Hume, Smith, the geologist James Hutton, the chemist Joseph Black. Over fresh oysters and wine, they discuss everything from economics to the age of the earth. Here, specialization gives way to universal curiosity. James Hutton examines Edinburgh's volcanic geology. Arthur's Seat, the massive hill east of Holyrood, reveals Earth's ancient history. Salisbury Crags show tilted rock strata. Hutton proposes the Earth is far older than biblical chronology suggests. Deep time revealed in Edinburgh stone. Joseph Black conducts experiments in his university laboratory, He discovers carbon dioxide, what he calls fixed air. He investigates heat and temperature. His research on latent heat will enable steam engine improvements. Science practiced in Edinburgh cellars changes industrial civilization. Robert Burns arrives November 1786. 27 years old, an Ayrshire farmer's son. His poems, chiefly in the Scottish dialect published in Kilmarnock, brings instant fame. Edinburgh society welcomes this Ploughman poet. He walks streets where philosophers debate, yet speaks in Scotland's authentic voice. Burns becomes sensation in Edinburgh drawing rooms. Ladies swoon over the rustic genius. He dines with aristocrats who praise his natural talent, yet Burns feels the condescension beneath their compliments. He captures Scottish life in verse that intellectuals cannot. Love, drink, poverty, joy. In Taverns, Burns is more comfortable. Here he meets printer William Smellie, who publishes the Edinburgh edition of his poems. 3,000 copies sell immediately. Burns represents what the Enlightenment claimed to value: genius emerging from humble origins, Scotland's soul given lyric voice. But Burns sees Edinburgh's contradictions: intellectual brilliance alongside crushing poverty, philosophical discourse while the poor freeze in unheated garrets. His poetry captures what philosophy cannot: the lived reality of Scottish life. Rural wisdom challenging urban sophistication. By mid-century, Edinburgh's elite tire of Old Town squalor. They envision something new. 1767, James Craig's plan for New Town approved. A Georgian grid north of the Old Town. Wide streets, elegant squares, spacious townhouses. The Enlightenment's rational ideals made architecture. The New Town rises on former farmland. George Street runs parallel to Princes Street and Queen Street. 3 magnificent boulevards connected by perpendicular streets. Charlotte Square and St. Andrew Square anchor the design. Classical proportions, mathematical precision, order imposed on landscape. Robert Adam designs Charlotte Square's north side, 1791. Uniform facades create single palatial composition. Behind matching exteriors, individual townhouses for the wealthy. Wide windows, high ceilings, modern plumbing, everything the Old Town lacks. Enlightenment values in sandstone and glass. The North Bridge, completed 1772, physically connects Old and New Towns. 5 arches spanning the valley between them. 50 feet wide, 300 feet long. A massive engineering achievement, but also symbolic. The bridge between medieval past and enlightened future. During construction, the North Bridge collapses, killing 5. Eventually rebuilt, it stands as testament to ambition. Affluent families cross to their New Town houses. Behind them, the crowded wynds of the Old Town. Physical separation mirrors growing social division, progress at a price. Yet the Old Town remains vibrant. Taverns continue hosting debates. The university maintains its reputation. Publishers produce books rivaling London's output. The Encyclopaedia Britannica first published here, 1768. Edinburgh's printing industry flourishes, spreading Enlightenment ideas worldwide. William Creech's bookshop on the High Street becomes literary gathering place. Here Burns negotiates his Edinburgh edition. Here Scott will later browse. Shelves packed with works by Hume, Smith, Robertson. Edinburgh's thoughts disseminated through printed word to Europe, America, the world. The Royal Society of Edinburgh, founded 1783, bringing together Scotland's greatest minds. Hutton presents his geological theories here. Mathematicians, physicians, inventors share discoveries. Formal institution for informal networks that made Edinburgh's Enlightenment possible. Edinburgh's influence spreads through its students. Benjamin Rush studies medicine here before signing the American Declaration of Independence. Future physicians return to Boston, Philadelphia, New York with Edinburgh methods. Scottish ideas cross the Atlantic, shaping American thought. The university produces not just scholars, but practical innovators. James Watt perfects the steam engine after studying Black's theories on heat. Edinburgh-trained engineers build canals and factories across Britain. Theory transforms into industrial revolution. Ideas become machines. By century's end, Edinburgh has transformed. Population approaches 70,000. New town construction continues. Yet the contradictions remain. Brilliant minds and crushing poverty. Classical architecture and medieval squalor. The Scottish Enlightenment emerged not despite these contradictions, but perhaps because of them. What made Edinburgh's Enlightenment possible? A small population produced disproportionate genius. Perhaps the union with England freed Scottish minds from political constraints. Perhaps Presbyterian education created broad literacy. Perhaps poverty bred intellectual hunger. Perhaps accident. Perhaps inevitability. The legacy endures. Hume's philosophy influences thinkers for centuries. Smith's economics shapes modern capitalism. Burns's poetry keeps Scots language alive. Edinburgh's medical school trains generations of physicians. The Scottish Enlightenment proves intellectual revolution needs no vast resources, only free minds. Walk the Royal Mile today. The same cobblestones Hume trod. The same castle rising above. St. Giles still stands. The university continues teaching. The closes and wynds remain, though cleaned and sanitized. Edinburgh preserved its medieval skeleton while modernizing its organs. The Athens of the North was never mere boast. In one generation, this northern city of barely 60,000 produced philosophy that questioned everything: economics explaining human commerce, poetry capturing the soul, science revealing Earth's age, medicine saving countless lives. Edinburgh proved that intellectual brilliance could emerge anywhere minds were free to question, debate, and create. Not in spite of hardship, but perhaps forged by it. The Scottish Enlightenment reminds us that human potential knows no geographical boundaries. Ideas need only freedom to flourish.